Go search your words that you think you're most likely to show up for. Look objectively, do you really compete here? Show these signals to Amazon that you are more in demand than other products that have launched around this niche. There is a million ways you can set up a variation structure. The difference between doing it well and doing it poorly is massive. We've had incredible success. Some of our largest, most successful stories we've ever had with brands came from setting up variations correctly. It's not from some amazing ad technique or perfectly timed sale that we ran. It's that we made all the products really shoppable.
It's all killer, no filler. I'm Eric, and it's been a while, I feel like, since I've had Clifford and Rob from Pilot House's Amazon team on the podcast. How you guys doing?
Doing well, thanks.
Good.
Happy to be here.
You're getting all ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You're in your Q4 preparations.
T12 over here, Turkey 12. That's what
Elaborate.
Amazon's calling it. They're calling it Turkey 12. Apparently it's going to be 12 days long this year.
T12. Okay, well, elaborate on that a little bit.
Oh, I just think they're doing sales a week early. That's all. And it's going to run all the way to Cyber Monday. If you add up the week before all the way to Cyber Monday, that's 12 days. So I'm assuming that's what's happening.
I was just interviewing Manly Bands for a podcast, and they have a early they're trying to beat the October Blaws with a early 30% Black Friday Cyber Monday sale. And I was like, that's the first one I've seen. So congratulations. You win a prize. We have some stuff to talk about Prime Day, but the first topic that, Rob, you brought up today was something you're calling the cold start problem. What is the cold start problem, and what are we doing to heat it up?
Yeah, so I didn't coin the term, but it kind of comes back to also this like concept of the honeymoon phase on Amazon. And the honeymoon phase on Amazon is this idea that when you launch a new product, you have a set amount of time where it's easier to build rank, it's easier to get visibility, it's easier to drive revenue. And the theory behind the honeymoon phase was Amazon needs a way for new products to break into the algorithm and actually generate results. Otherwise, like if it was purely based on past sales history, how would any new product break into the market? The concept of cold start relates to like the algorithmic problem of how do you approach a new product into a marketplace. Like how do you build an algorithm that isn't based purely on past data that actually accurately incorporate a new product into the system of rank?
Okay, so that's the cold start problem. What do we do? How do we understand the cold start problem, and how do we leverage the momentum within the honeymoon phase to get a warm start?
Yeah, so you're coming into a machine learning algorithm with no data. So it's going to use what it can at first to rank you. So any attributes that you're putting in the listing, your brand name, if you're a successful brand already on Amazon, there's likely some juice that you're getting from being a brand already, because the algorithm can use that as, well, we know how this brand performs. This is a new product from this brand, and they perform on these keywords pretty good. So we'll give them a little extra reach on those keywords. Or if it's a blue product, making sure that you have blue in the attributes, so you're more likely to show up for blue keywords. But really what it's going to do is give you, like, this whole concept of a honeymoon period was supposed to be based on you get more reach initially as a new product. And we've always gotten the questions along, well, how long does that last for? How long do we get this honeymoon period effect for? It's seeming like not very long if there's enough data. It's not based on a time frame thing. It's just based on the algorithm being fed enough data to be able to make good probability decisions on what to do with your product. So if we go back to the classic running shoe example, if you're a blue running shoe and you're launching that blue running shoe on Amazon, if very quickly it shows you in middle of search, and that's an impression to the algorithm. So it's every time it's showing you, it's like recording that there's an impression there for this keyword, there's an impression there for this keyword, these keywords are related, and no one's clicking on it. It's going to show you less and less, and it might not show you at all after that, and now you have to buy ads to be able to be shown at all. Whereas if you were a brand new, amazing new Nike shoe that everyone's been looking forward to for the last 6 months, and you kept all your attributes the same as that other product, and you're just a blue running shoe, Same thing. You didn't go through all this extra effort to fill out all these extra attributes. You didn't make some amazing listing. You just threw it up. Just from being that amazing thing that Nike's looking for, or all these people are looking for from Nike, all of those people that search blue running shoe and all these other searches, they might recognize you, quickly click on it, buy it, and the algorithm is going to very quickly rank you up for all these words, even though you didn't put in all that extra effort to make the listing amazing. It's just based on that very early data. This algorithm just really trying to use the limited data it has to make the best decisions of reach to give you.
Interesting point there is there's no so based on the data and the patents from Amazon regarding cold start problem and their algorithm, there is no predetermined honeymoon phase as it's been described. That said, I would still consider there to be a honeymoon period. It's different. And the difference there is you have the benefit of the algorithm not having any data. And that means no negative data, no idea of where you should fit. So you can feed it the exact data that you want it to have to create the best result. Because a poor launch with poor conversion rates and low visibility, low reach, low impressions will tell Amazon that you're not a relevant product and people aren't going to buy you. And that's not a good customer experience for Amazon's shoppers. So the benefit of a honeymoon period is just the fact that you have an opportunity to start with a clean slate and feed Amazon the data you want it to have.
But how critical it is to really put your best foot forward there and take every opportunity to differentiate your product or to how much work goes into that? I guess you have a note here about what your advice for people who are actually launching a brand. So maybe walk us through your mindset. Are you really, you're picking the niche you want it to be in a little bit and you're pumping in the keywords you want it to focus on, obviously. What's your mindset there?
It comes down to creating those positive interactions. To me, a positive interaction is going to be the combination of both impressions, click-through rate, and then ultimately conversions. Because if you just drive traffic, but it's crappy traffic, you don't get conversions, and that's still going to be negative. So the combination of those. To do that, you're going to want to send as much relevant traffic that is likely to convert through the most optimized listing. The most optimized listing is both from a conversion rate and an SEO standpoint, and from a back-end attribute standpoint. So everything you do on the listing front is feeding Amazon the initial data in terms of what are you, where do you fit, what's the benefits, what's the price point, giving it all the information that you possibly can. And then the traffic comes down to sending relevant traffic that is likely to convert. So targeting not just any keyword, but keywords that you can actually get a conversion on, that you can actually compete against, as well as outside traffic has less of a impact, but still an impact to the algorithm. So sending outside traffic, if you can, to Amazon in those initial phases as well, because you're just trying to create, if you can create as much velocity as possible, it seems to be that velocity matters as well as the volume. But you don't necessarily have to sell more volume than the current top ranked number one slot to climb the ranks near to it if you can climb it quickly and have a lot of sales velocity, because Amazon says, hey, this is new. People are interested in it.
It's a contender.
Exactly. And if you can keep that going, then you can maintain those ranks. But if
you can maintain some velocity and some momentum outside of the honeymoon phase. So you just want a really good honeymoon. You're putting it all on the line for your honeymoon, Clifford. Have you done that?
Of course. What I really wanted to get into with it too is niching down and making sure that you're actually doing all of the effort to ensure you're competitive on day one, on hour one, on minute one of that product going live. So yes, there is all of the listing stuff. Yes, your main image should be dialed in. Yes, your other secondary, third listing images should be very good. Infographics, point out your main selling points. A+ content should be totally dialed in. Everything about the listing should follow the best possible practices you can on day one, ready to go. But there's more to it than just doing those basics, because you're also now in search results with a bunch of competition. You're not just a product page that's being sent to from an ad that someone clicked on Meta. You're in a marketplace surrounded by your competition. So go search your words. I feel like it's almost never done. It's the simplest, most basic thing. Go to the words that you think you're most likely to show up for, search 10 of them, and look objectively in that space, separate yourself from your brand, do your best, be harsh to yourself, and do you really compete here? Like, does this really work? Or do you have to slash your prices for your launch to ridiculous amounts to actually get sales? Do you have to find different ways to send traffic to it, to get your brand recognition? Do you have to seed out influencers beforehand for your launch? Like, whatever you can possibly do to show these signals to Amazon that you are more in demand than other products that have launched around this niche. Now, that niche could be tiny, like, and this is where I kind of get down to you should niche down as much as you can to it and really speak to that audience, because the more you can really nail that niche, even if it's relatively small, makes a huge difference for driving that conversion. Because Amazon will very quickly, it is much better to be rank 2 on a 2,000 search volume keyword than it is to be rank 30 on a 20,000 search volume keyword. So if you can niche down and own that little space, then niche down and own it and get that ranking really quickly. And you can use those sales to feed that larger keyword for the longer term ranking that will take longer. But initially, there's likely small spaces where your no review or very low review count product might actually convert on. Find those spaces, look at the price points, look at the hero images, look at what you're competing against, and speak to those exact people the best you can with your listing, be competitive with your price point, and you can hit that launch like from day one, from minute one, with as much velocity as possible.
Some great advice right there. Declan, clip that one. That one's going viral. I think anyone selling on Amazon right there should use that. They should fall asleep to that. Clifford will just play it and people will be like psychic driving. I like that. So is there anything else you guys want to say about the opposition to a cold start and how to make the most of it? Or should we move on to our next topic, which sounds like variation structure, which I don't even know what that means.
I think I'll go on cold start. It's like, it sounds incredibly simple because it's like, hey, show Amazon positive data. But I think there's nuance in the simplicity, but it's also, it just makes sense from an algorithm perspective as well. So
yeah, combination of really and niching down is the other, being the right thing for the right person in that moment. As a customer, you know, when you look on Amazon, there's so often things that aren't exactly relevant, and the moment you find the exact thing you're looking for, it's just this like, yeah, I'm clicking. What is a variation structure? What are we talking about here?
So we've been doing this a ton lately. It's been a focus we've honestly had for years, but we have a lot of new product launches across a lot of brands lately, and there's a lot of variants. What is a variant? It's different colors, different shapes, different styles of the same product. There is a very clear distinction I want to make off the go here, which is it is very much against the rules and technically against the law to put together products in these variations that are not the same. A vitamin company got an FTC lawsuit a couple years ago for putting together different vitamins because they all share reviews in this variation. Now, should they have gotten sued? All that, I think we talked about it at the time. I'm against it, but it is what it is. So careful with your variations. Don't get ridiculous with it. But what I'm trying to get at with this conversation is there is a million ways you can set up a variation structure. And the difference between doing it well and doing it poorly is massive. All the things you're going to do with advertising and with price point and with listing images, in my opinion, don't compare at all to setting up your variations properly. I have an example here. If anyone's watching,
if you're listening on the podcast, you can either go to Spotify to see where we'll post this video, or you can watch this on YouTube if you actually want to see Clifford walk through the variation structure talk.
So speaking of blue running shoes, I searched blue running shoe. I clicked the top organic listing. It's an Under Armour men's blue running shoe. Variations here are all of these colors and all of these sizes. So they have a massive variation. Within this one parent product, they have hundreds of products because they have all these sizes and then matched up with all these colors. The point I'm trying to make with this is incredibly difficult to shop. You can't see what color these are. You have to hover each one individually. And on mobile, you have to swipe through each of these. It's horrific. You have a variation this large.
The photos aren't the same. You're like, is that even the same shoe? Is that like, it doesn't give you good vibes.
Exactly. And to give a different example, this brand has nothing to do with us. I just like their variation structure, and I've used it as an example before. This is a pasta brand. What they've done is they've made little fun icons for each of their different pasta shapes to make them very clear what shape they are. They've also named it with their style name here. Variety says what comes in the variety. They're using that field to their advantage. And each of these very clearly shows what is in that variation.
Which field, sorry, exactly? Like under style?
Under style here, this little bit even is filled out properly so that you can quickly see what each one has. Whereas if we look at that same thing, now it's color on the shoes, but if we look at that same thing, these are not super useful names. They kind of are, but there's like numbers in front of them. They're not clear.
So what would you do with this listening to clean it up?
It's very category dependent what variation structures are available to you. So in certain categories, and I believe in shoes, you could set up a 3-tiered variation. So you could have a third tier here that might say style or purpose or use case or whatever for the shoes. So you would pick your size, you would pick your use case, and then you could pick your color. And also you could change these little color icons to be colors only, not have the shoe pictured, but instead just be a square with the color to show what color it is. So it's very, very clear from looking at it what color it is. If you just leave it the default, which is what they've done, they've just set up color and size and they've just left it the default. Yeah, it uses these images that in those little tiles look tiny, and some of them are stocked out, and some of them are really hard to see. Some of them look the same. Like you said, they look like different shoes even. So not setting up that tiered structure means it's very hard to shop. Someone's going to probably either get the wrong one or just bounce off. That's too many, is annoying, leave. And especially there's this end of it, but there's also the other end where you don't use variations nearly at all, or you don't put products together that should be together in a variation, and then people can't find it. You get one listing that ranks up super well, and then you have another one that's buried in the search results because no one can find that other one. Good examples of this would be things like you'd have a tea and you'd have a decaf tea of the same one. Your decaf tea might be its own complete separate listing. Put it together in a variation. Now, variations are a pain to work with. Anyone who's done anything on Amazon with variations, they're a nightmare. They're a complete nightmare. You have to use these massive spreadsheets. Things don't go together nicely. Those names that I just showed you, they don't change the way you want them to all the time. It sucks. But if you can overcome the annoyance of having to set them up and getting them all set up right, and you set up the shopping experience better, we've had incredible success. I would attribute some of our largest, most successful stories we've ever had with brands came from setting up variations correctly. It's not from some amazing ad technique or some perfectly timed sale that we ran. It's that we made all the products really shoppable.
And something that you could easily overlook. And even big brands like Under Armour, if you're listening, it looks like you're overlooking. I don't know if I fully agree, because in that case, they're all the same shoe. They're all for running. So I don't know if adding a third tier of variations in that case really helps it. But I think what you're saying about, making those images more consistent, first of all, using that icon for each image in a creative way, potentially, so that you can see at a glance a little bit how things are different, makes perfect sense for sure. Finally here, what's going on? First of all, Rob, anything to add on variation structure there? I think Clifford
summed it up pretty well. Like, just how can we increase shoppability, make it very easy for customers to find what the product that they want, choose that product, and then buy that product. So how can you use variation structures to make that sort of as streamlined as possible?
And check out Pete's Pasta. Great example. That was your first non-running shoe example ever, Clifford, I think.
Their A+ has a pretty nice A+ too. So
cool. Shout out. Prime Big Deal Days wrap up. I did not buy anything for Prime. I saw our coworker Brett going crazy with Prime Day videos on his TikTok account. How did Prime Big Deal Days work for our clients?
I mean, I bought a few things. So, I mean, next, please support Amazon on the next Prime Day, Eric. Let us
Yes,
down.
I will.
But yeah, it was good. I'll let Clifford speak to some of the details at a high level. More of a focus on profitability this year for brands. That's been a trend like throughout the year. So understanding like really how can we leverage Prime Day to not just increase sales, but also increase profit. So being smart with our discounting strategies, doing the pre-work to understand what efficiency do we have to hit to actually maintain or grow profit margin. Is the goal to grow dollar value profit margin or like dollar amount profit margin or like percentage profit margin? So anyway, a lot of talks going into Prime Day, understanding like what's going to be the result and what's the intended result. Other interesting things like brands saw a mix of like whether day 2 or day 1 or day 2 was bigger. So it wasn't consistent across our catalog that one day was bigger. It was actually inconsistent across the catalog, which is just a kind of a fun thing to note. Yeah, it's high level points. I'll let Clifford kind of
Practically, Clifford, what does focus on profitability actually mean? Does it mean being more conservative in your discounts, more conservative in your bidding? What does that look like?
Yeah, more conservative in your bidding for sure. There is a obviously massive lift in cost per clicks. Amazon also on the back end of the advertising structure side, they have put in recommended bid increases for event days. And a lot of brands are probably following those. So they're going to bid up substantially. And you don't really need to chase that. You could, again, like Rob said, if your focus is really on volume, this is a big new customer acquisition day for you, you'll need to raise your bids substantially to be able to be shown on, especially in the morning of Prime Big Deal Days. But you could be strategic with it and keep your bids where they need to be to match your conversion rate lift to achieve your proper efficiency that you're going for. Just keeping in mind that, one, the ad console's super delayed on the day. So be relatively confident in your conversion rate staying at least the same because those sales likely won't be attributed. And two, being confident that your competitors are probably going to run out of budget by midday, late in the afternoon. We see a lot of competitors drop off and cost per clicks get lower. So in many cases, a lot of our ad spend was very weighted towards the afternoon to evenings on both days because budgets are typically a daily budget.
This is something we've talked about before, taking advantage of,
But you could really like lean out in the morning and then increase later in the day if you really want to focus on efficiency, because you're likely going to get those cheaper clicks in the afternoon to evening.
The late bird gets the worm sometimes.
Absolutely. And you can even scale them up. So you can set bid rules inside your campaigns to like increase by 10% at noon and 20% at 3 p.m., etc. as you go later into the day.
I've just been seeing that ad that we filmed with Rick from 4Sig, who came and spoke at our C-suite mastermind. Must be pretty crazy because I know, the success that we've had with them has been pretty wild. And that testimonial, if you haven't seen it, just go to Pilot House's Instagram and check it out. But Rick is such an interesting guy to work with, Clifford?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a very omni-channel wizard for sure.
Yeah.
One thing on them, and kind of relates back to the variation structure and on promos for things like Prime Day, is using those variations to your advantage. You don't have to put the whole variation on sale. Put one thing in the variation on promo and let that be the traffic driver into the listing. And if people were brought in for the red one that was on sale, but they don't really want the red one, well, they can buy the black one at full price. But at least you got them into the listing with the sale as your traffic driver. And so you're using that variation to your advantage again, rather than it just being separate listings.
We're running like a discount big enough to be Prime eligible on like the one variation, and then just a smaller discount on some of the other variation structures to maintain like an overall margin target.
Efficiency, right? That's just, again, another way of improving profitability through these big sale periods. So how does this lead into our Q4 outlook, Rob? What does Q4 outlook look like?
Yeah, so I mean, we're getting all geared up for it now. Inventories should be on its way. And yeah, I think we're going to see similar trends to Prime Day with a focus on that profitability. So again, being smart with discount strategies, being smart with like how we're approaching bid increases. on those specific days, we're likely going to see the same thing where competitors are going to budget cap towards like the middle end of the day. Those longer sale weeks, we'll probably see less budget capping. So it'll be more of a focus on like, can we maintain day of profitability kind of throughout the day and then leverage the major days to the best of our ability. I imagine we'll see a mix of brands running sort of early sales, early promos, or limiting to deal days. And that's going to depend on the brand's sort of willingness to discount, brands' current reference prices, what they've done kind of leading up to it, and what their goals are for end of year. If they're looking to boost revenue and acquisition, or whether they're kind of like pushing for some profitability at the end of the year here. So
yeah, it brings in a lot of interesting dynamics for it being a longer event, because now you have the time to figure out, what do your budgets need to be? Where do your bids need to be? How is efficiency looking for those first days of the sale? Like, you have all this on sale period coming into the big spike of Black Friday. Whereas every event day, Black Friday, Prime Day, it's all been like a pop up one day and you got to figure it out quickly. And you're kind of guessing a lot of the day. But you have such a lead up now where you're already on sale that you're getting a lot of pretty good deal data already. So I think a lot of the budget stuff that we're talking about there might not apply, like you're saying, Rob, on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. A lot of your competing brands, if they're paying attention, might have already figured that out by the time Black Friday rolls around.
Or they just listen to the podcast and now they know. But
that's right. That's right. This is going to be out, I think, after the U.S. election. I think we're like however T12, T15 days from that. Is there ever any impact you see on Amazon? Because we talk about political spending on Meta, and I haven't actually heard too much of it being too impactful in this last run-up. Is there any impact on Amazon for the U.S. election? Nothing. No Bezos drama to talk about. He just gave a bunch of money to charity. Can't goad you guys into getting political. Let's just maybe leave it there. We covered a lot.
I will say something. Well, not completely political, but I was just down in Arizona for like a vacation, which was great. But one of the things I loved doing was just switching between news channels and watching the like last minute political advertising. Absolutely hilarious as a Canadian to just like see how scathing both sides get towards each other. My girlfriend kept making fun of me for just like watching commercials because I was like, this is great.
Yeah, we don't get our political ads in Canada. They're definitely snide and like they're a little cutting, but it's nothing compared to what they get down south.
No, I had a great time. Yeah,
but tariffs could be interesting if that ends up being a thing, because obviously everyone knows Amazon's filled with straight from China products, not shipped into the US and remade or put into something or branded US or whatever, like just straight from China onto Amazon. So if one side wins and they put massive tariffs on imports from China, it would have insane effects on Amazon. So
it's interesting to me that the Biden administration has kept tariffs up on a lot of things. I thought they would be like, oh, it's evil, they're wrong on every case, but I know Trump will probably go tariff crazy too. So which
would also affect Temu and TikTok Shop and all of these other major Amazon competitors. So if stuff like that happens, I think in my eyes, it's probably good for our general like Amazon US brands. Yeah. For the most part, but if your stuff's made in China, maybe not so much.
And that TikTok ban is still looming depending on who gets in there potentially. And that it's funny because TikTok, like when people talk about it as a platform, they talk about it as like one of the only legitimate competitors to Amazon in a way because of its. So you guys are probably just like licking your chops, just like,
oh yeah, ban it, get rid of it. It's horrible for everyone.
Yeah. Classic. Well, we'll see if Bezos agrees. Thanks, guys. This was fun. And if share this with someone. If someone is struggling to either get started on Amazon or has some thoughts about variations, send this podcast to them and say, hey,
don't share with anyone. Keep it to yourself. We don't want this getting out.
Don't share it with other agencies. Just share it with brands, and then tell them to come work with pilots. Because why wouldn't you work with the best Amazon team in the Galdern business? No, any reasons you guys can think of?
We're a little sassy sometimes.
People love getting sassed a little bit. If you don't like scaling up your business on Amazon in a profitable, very conscious way, then don't work with these guys.
You don't have to deal directly with Clifford. You can go through me if you do not want the Clifford sass, but just an option.
Just for me, it's like once a month. That's for this once a month Clifford sass is just what I want. So maybe you can get the same. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're not getting the D2C newsletter, you can subscribe for free at directtoconsumer.co. And if you want to learn more about Pilot House's all-killer, no-filler services, take off to pilothouse.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.